Pokemon Brick Bronze was perhaps one of the most beloved Pokemon fan games that still holds a special place in the hearts of its fans. From its humble beginnings in 2015 to its unfortunate demise in 2018, this game not only became one of the most popular games on Roblox, but also one of the most beloved Pokemon fan games pretty much ever. Today, I'm going to review Pokemon Brick Bronze as it was before it got deleted in 2018. To make this video easier to follow, I have divided this video into several chapters which you can conveniently skip to by using the timestamps in the description. Without any further ado, let's begin, shall we? Pokemon Brick Bronze was a fan-made Pokemon game developed by Lando64000, T. Bradham, and a bunch of other people on Roblox that first appeared onto the scene in late 2015 as a paid access game, which eventually became free to play. The game quickly garnered a lot of attention as more and more famous YouTubers started to play and make videos on the game. With each passing update, the game got more and more popular and beloved by its ever-growing fan base, but also more and more ambitious. The devs had an entire list of features that they wanted to add into the game to make it feature-wise as close to the mainline games as possible. All of this sadly culminated on April 18th, 2018, when the game sadly got copyright struck by Nintendo and the Pokemon Company due to stolen assets from the mainline games and had to be shut down. This was, of course, shocking to the majority of fan base, as many of them joined Roblox just to play this game, and many also got introduced to the world of Pokemon through this game, including myself. A lot of the former players quit Roblox altogether after the game was deleted. Some migrated to playing the official mainline Pokemon games, including myself, while the majority just started playing other minigames on Roblox. After a while, and by a while I mean ages, the dev team, now under the name of Llama Train Studios, started working on another game called Lumion Legacy, which is a Pokemon-like game without actually involving Pokemon at all. The game instead revolves around Lumions, which, let's face it, are just Pokemon with extra steps, so that this time they won't get copyrighted. The game slowly started gaining more and more attention and is still going decently strong, even by today's standards. But we aren't here to talk about Lumion Legacy. This video is about Pokemon Brick Bronze. Now that you know a little bit about its history, let's move on to the next chapter then. For this game, the dev team had an entire list of features that they wanted to add to the game, and they actually kept their promise. Before its deletion, the game featured a vast majority of the mainline national decks up to Generation 7, a nearly complete overworld map, along with 8 complete gyms, Mega Evolution and Z-moves, both of which used by NPCs in the main story, the Trade Resort and the Battle Coliseum, which were 2 separate places from the main adventure mode where you could go around and trade with or battle people. Gear Freak, take notes, we absolutely need this in all mainline games. A mining minigame like in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, special location and events for mythical and legendary Pokemon, and a nearly full storyline revolving around the evil Team Eclipse. This is quite a lot of features, not only for a Roblox game, but for a Pokemon fan game. The storyline was inspired by the ones from Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, X, and Y, in which the Team Eclipse leader wants to destroy this world that he deems unworthy and create a brand new, more desirable one. However, in this game they use Hoopa to accomplish this instead. By now you might think you are clever and wonder, what about the name of the game? They specify that the game is about some bronze brick of some description, and yes, they steal that thing from you twice, the second time using it to create a portal just like in Minecraft. I wonder if they tried developing this game in Minecraft instead, wouldn't it have been called Pixelmon The Last Obsidian Block? Cypress, the professor, is actually the evil team leader. Jake, your rival, gets abducted halfway through the story because he tried fighting Team Eclipse all by himself. Big brain move right there. And then quote-unquote betrays you, Antes, which is the other rival, which he had a huge crush on, and at the end he gets sucked in by the ever-expanding portal after throwing Cypress in it and saving Tess from some random crate that was conveniently placed on site and got sucked in by the portal as well. Oh, and your parents do actually exist and are abducted right from the beginning and are absent for like 98% of the story. Yay! I love spoilers! One of the most important aspects in a Pokemon game is the difficulty. If the game is too hard, it will make newer, less experienced players turn around due to their inability to overcome the challenges that they face, but if the game is too easy, take notes Game Freak, it also makes players not want to play the game anymore because the game is too easy and constantly insulting their own knowledge and skill. Pokemon Brick Bronze sits somewhere in the middle. The game is not too outrageously hard but not too easy either, which is a good thing. However, somehow, even though the game's difficulty is somewhere in the middle, I wouldn't really say that the game is all that well balanced, which mainly shows up in the outrageous level curve. On one hand, it is sort of understandable. The devs did their best considering this was their first attempt at something like this, but it makes me wonder two things. One, why did the majority of players not complain about this? And two, if there were some players complaining about this level curve, then why did they not try to rebalance it? I assume this is probably because a lot of Pokemon Brick Bronze players are playing a Pokemon game for their first time and don't understand that this is not normal compared to the mainline game. If I were in charge of rebalancing the game, I would drastically lower the gym leaders' level caps, but in return improve their team slightly so it balances out. I would keep the overall trainers the same and make them all rematchable and also raise the wild Pokemon's levels, especially in the late game. This way we can cut down on the horrendous amount of grinding that you have to do all throughout the game and alleviate any quote-unquote EXP bottleneck chokers, as I like to call them. Let's talk about the region of Roria and its geography for a bit. Roria is a completely fictional region, but let's face it, it kind of looks like Geography Now's imaginary country of Limberwisk, and is made out of 3 major islands. The main island, Crescent Island, and Amphion City, which is a giant city on a floating island. Besides this, there are also a bunch of other smaller, separate islands accessible via the ferry service in Port Deca. The main island is very mountainous, being almost 75% mountains. Roria is also a decently big region, about the same size as Hoenn, including the late game water routes and everything, which is definitely not bad. The variety of Pokemon is also decent, since the game is based around having access to as many Pokemon from the National Dex as possible, which is really good thing, even though your options are somewhat limited in the early game. The game, however, is completely linear. The game is one straight linear path from the southern part of the region all the way through the northeast. You can go off the beaten path and explore optional areas, but you're still mostly guided through the main path. Where this game differs from the mainline games is the fact that there isn't actually a lot of hand-holding in this game, which is actually really good. Take notes, Game Freak. The thing that keeps you on your path for the most part is the actual geography of the region and the gym challenge, which is really good since I definitely don't want to see another character like Liliach constantly appearing every 5 steps just to generate some more text boxes for me to click. That simply does not happen in this game, and the hand-holding that does exist is quite well executed and written, and it doesn't last for any second longer than it should, which is quite a bit of a fresh breath of air. By this point in the review, you might be wondering how the actual gameplay is. Considering what I just said earlier, it's actually decent. The game isn't as crazy as compared to other fan games like Pokemon Insurgents. I mean, sure, the game does go crazy when it needs to, but you do get a lot of freedom to do whatever you want for the most part. One big issue I have with the gameplay is the fact that they embraced the use of HMs through and through in this game, when they could have very easily just removed them all. Come on, it's not that hard. The game was released around the same time as the release of Pokemon Sun and Moon, which completely got rid of HMs. They could have done something similar to that in this game. I also want to talk about the UI a little bit. On one of my other channels, I made a YouTube Shorts series where I ranked all of the main Pokemon games UIs, and if somehow Pokemon Brick Bronze was included in that ranking, it would probably sit right before Hard Gold and Soul Silver. The UI is quite different from the ones you typically see on modern Pokemon games, but it's still very well thought out and accessible and easy to use. It does look different, but you will get the hang of it in no time. Another thing that a lot of modern mainline games struggle with in this day and age is the technical performance. As you already know, this game runs off Roblox's Lua engine, which is really well optimized, which means that the game runs flawlessly with very few bugs, which do usually get ironed out. Game Freak, take note. If you use an open source engine that is also well optimized, your game is going to run great. What a shocker. You can play this game on basically anything and it will run. This also means that the graphics are based off whatever assets the devs could get their hands on, which results in graphics being comparable to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. For a Roblox game, this is really good, but for SV, this is a massive L. The soundtrack of the game isn't that bad either, even though it's half stolen and half custom made. That's probably another reason for them getting copyrighted. It's not too intrusive and it complements the game nicely. Also, the gym leaders get their own battle theme. How cool is that? We absolutely need this in the mainline games. And we have more or less arrived at our conclusion. I know I am biased because this game was the very first Pokemon game I ever played, but if I were to give it an unbiased score, I would probably give it a 7.5 out of 10. The game itself is good and has many good things going for it, but in this day and age, our attention spans have been completely demolished by TikTok and the like, which means that nowadays, nobody has the balls to sit through and actually play this game. Don't get me wrong, it's a good game, but people nowadays prefer crazy shit happening all over their screen every single fucking second. Otherwise, they will never play that game again, which is sad. The game has been officially dead for over 5 years now, but there are plenty of copies of the game that you can go and play. But if you plan on doing that, I suggest doing it at your own risk. I did already play on 2 of those copies, and they are both really good, and I do recommend them, but you might not encounter the same experience as I have, so be careful out there. And especially do your research. And it's also not really ethical because, you know, that tweet that T. Bradham made and so on. So yeah, I think it's definitely one thing to keep in mind. Or if you just don't want to deal with any of that, you can just go watch my Pokemon Brick Bronze Forever long play, which I will have linked in the description below. And I think that concludes this silly little Pokemon Brick Bronze review. If you want more content like this, consider subscribing. It's free, it helps the channel grow, and it also makes me make better content. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you in the next video. See ya!